Tony D and Little Joan with Screenwriter's Rant on Tetris, movie about the man who brought it to the world. Smash a like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. Links in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 10. Available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. So this story takes place in the 80s, in the early days of video games. Here's the original Tetris. It was invented by a guy in the Soviet Union, and this guy fell in love with it and decided to bring it to, well, the world. Bring it out of the Soviet Union. And this is the story. And it's a crazy story where he sees the first Game Boy, and then he has to go to the Soviet Union to negotiate with the Soviets to get the game. And he's got a wife and kids, and they love the game, and they're just trying to get the rights to it. And during the course of the movie, all kinds of crazy things happen. There's Soviet, mobsters and stuff, and everybody wants the money, and he, the Soviet Union was falling apart then. But it looks kind of interesting. I'm sure it's dramatized for the movie. I'm a huge fan of the game, and I think that's why they made it, March 31st. So, a lot of old tech, late 80s tech, I guess. So, first act, he falls in love with the game, right? And it's in the Soviet Union. He and we set up the character and what his deal is, working for his company, whatever he works for. I guess he works for the Nintendo, or ever ended up buying it or licensing it. Maybe he works for himself. Maybe he's an outside contractor. Anyhow, he gets this idea to take, why don't we license this thing? And they tell him, you can't. It was invented in the Soviet Union. Nobody could touch it. At the same time, they show him the Game Boy, I guess, and he realizes, if we could get the rights to Tetris and put it on the Game Boy, it'll be the biggest thing, and everybody will love it. So he has this dream, and we follow him on his dream. So he comes up with the idea of going to the Soviet Union to negotiate in person, even though it's the late 80s and the Soviet Union's falling apart, right? So he goes, and it's all about his crazy adventures in the Soviet Union, how corrupt they are, and gangsters, and, the guy who invented it, who is a nice guy, but he's living in an oppressed society. He's got to be careful. Like, everybody has to be careful. The whole thing's on the verge of falling apart. There's bribes, and there's secret police, and he doesn't speak Russian, and it's just a big mess. And it's about how he overcomes that. And then the climax is, I guess, at some point they decided he's a spy, because this is what happens when you go to a communist country. They may not be able to protect you. Like, you can go to China, right? But you step out of line the wrong way, you may not be ever coming back. Because the Chinese decide that, we need to use you as a pawn in our political game, and we're a bunch of communists, and we don't care about you. I mean, talk to that guy who went to North Korea. Yeah. If you remember him, the guy who died. Not a good time. Not a good time. So, it's an actual risk. And it's an error that speaks to me. So I like it, and I like the game. And then the climax is, of course, he gets the game, and it becomes this worldwide phenomenon, and he becomes a millionaire. We get the scroll at the end of the movie, what happened to him, what happened to the inventor of Tetris, what happened to the Soviet Union. That's a funny, look at he looks good though, doesn't he? Man, he looks sharp. I gotta say, the lead actor, Taron Egerton, terrible, I can't stand that name. It's so hard to pronounce and think about. What kind of name is that? Taron? It's like he's named after a spice. It should be Tarragon. Anyhow, no offense to him. No offense. I'm just saying it's a tough name. I have a tough name, tough last name. Anyhow, let's read the synopsis. The game you couldn't put down, the story you couldn't make up. That's a good tagline. I like that. Tetris streaming on March 31st. I have an Apple TV thing. I haven't hooked it up, but I may very well do it for this. Taron Egerton starts a new Apple original film inspired by the true story of one man risked his life to outsmart the KGB and turn Tetris into a worldwide sensation. Tetris is directed by John S. Baird, written by Noah Pink. The film's executive producer is Ian McKenzie. Producers Matt Vaughn, Gillian Berry, Claudia Vaughn, Len Blavatnik, and Gregor Cameron. Song The Final Countdown is in it by Europe because it's very 80s. The Final Countdown. It's very 80s. I don't know. I didn't like a lot of 80s music back in the day. I really didn't. Every time I hear it, though, it's like, oh, 80s. 80s stuff incoming. It's so mainstream to do an 80s movie now, isn't it? Back in the 80s, never would have seen it coming. Never would have seen it coming. Back in the 80s, we thought, it's so weird, man. Everybody apes the 50s in the 80s. But, you know, it's a time of hair bands, a time of Tetris, which I will probably see if I can get my, I got the box here. I got to hook up my Apple TV. Anyhow, you may have finally drawn me in, Apple TV. You may have finally drawn me in. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble. For our more bass takes, I will be at the Berlin Brewing Company in Berlin, New Jersey tomorrow, Friday at 6 p.m. to tell you all about how to hunt the Jersey Devil. We'll see you in the next one.